Hey guys, it's Peyton, and today I'm going to be telling you what you need to read. If you haven't read it yet, you need to read it. Don't know what you're doing right now. Why are you watching this video? Actually, finish the video first. Go read these books. Let me know if you had a good time, because I guarantee it. Leave me a hate comment if you don't end up liking them. I'm sharing 10 books from, I think, 4 different genres. I have romance, fantasy, horror/thrillers, and I have a classic to share about as well. These are actually 10 of my favorite books that I read last year. Did not make a video. It's March now. I want to still share. Like, these are books that I definitely think people should read, and I want to spread the wisdom, spread the knowledge. I'm gonna separate it by sections, so if you want to hit the buttons in the description for whatever genre you're interested in, you can go ahead and do that. And what's wrong with my hand? You know, what's not wrong with me? I'm suffering from a lot of different health issues. One of the things I'm dealing with is joint pain, and my thumb is not it right now, so I at least got a pink one. I think I'm gonna jump in to the romance choices first. I only got 2 of those. The first book on the romance list is Real by Kennedy Ryan. I recently discovered Kennedy Ryan this past year, I guess. She lives near me, I'm pretty sure. She does a lot of what am my cat doing? She does a lot of book events near my area, so I'm pretty sure she's in this area of North Carolina. So I saw that she had a book signing coming up. This was a re-release of this book, Real. It was, I think, self-published in the past, and they revamped it, gave it a new cover, and had a new epilogue. I read this book, and I could not have had this book enter my life at a better time. Like I just mentioned, I've been dealing with a million health issues, a lot within the last 6 months, and I'm still trying to figure out what exactly is wrong with me, and I don't really want to share it with anybody until I know for certain like what is wrong with me. But I came across this book because the main character has the autoimmune disease lupus, and I have a lot of similar symptoms to lupus. So this was something that I read and really connected with. And the main character is a Broadway star. She's an understudy, but she gets her first debut as the lead. The usual lead is out sick or something. I think she go on a trip. I don't know. She was not there. So she got to do her first Broadway debut. And this man happens to be in the audience, a really famous, well-known director, very established director named Cannon, which I think is funny that his name is Cannon, and he loves cameras. So he gets this absolute, like, indescribable feeling when he watches her perform, and he knows that she is the star of his next big movie that he's been working on. So it's not with a romantic intention, but there's definitely romantic vibes that come about when these two cross paths and they start working on this film together. While she's working on the film, she ends up having a lot of stress because this is a very crazy role, a lot of singing and dancing, and she starts to have her health issues come about. And it was just really interesting to read about someone who's so ambitious and like wants to achieve everything, having to grapple with these health issues that you cannot control, and it just happens at the most random time. Sometimes you just get smacked in the face with it. And I kind of was feeling this way this past year because I got my first full-time job straight out of college, and then I got smacked in the face with a bunch of health issues. So I did tell Kennedy Ryan like that this book meant a lot to me, and really great romance. Like, just put aside like my relatability with the chronic illness stuff, this was just a really great romance. So I went on to read a couple more of her books, and she is definitely just like phenomenal romance writer, so I highly recommend it. But I particularly really liked this one because I also love film. I studied film, so it was interesting to have such an insight into that. The other romance that was on my list was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Oh my god, this book I read in one sitting. I picked it up and I never turned back. Like, I literally like downloaded it on ebook, and I just could not stop reading. It was late at night, and it was, you know, it was within a 24-hour period. So I stayed up till 5 a.m. reading it, went to sleep for a little bit, and woke up again and completed it. It was so fantastic. The reason that this book really spoke to me was it's 2 doctors. They both work in the ER, and the male lead has really bad social anxiety, and they both have their perspectives in this book. I love when a romance has both perspectives. Real also did that. Like, I enjoy understanding where they're both coming at. To see her perspective in the social anxiety aspect, like, it was the most vivid, like, just perfect encapsulation of what social anxiety feels like in your head, because I have suffered from that my whole life. A lot better than I used to be, but it was just so cool to see that. But also just really enjoy the characters, their dynamic, their romance. They write letters to each other. They don't like each other at first because she feels like he's trying to steal her job, and like he wasn't really trying to do that, but like, you know, some chaotic stuff ensues and they end up fake dating. So some people really like fake dating, some people don't, because it's happened a lot. Like, a lot of books are doing fake dating. I enjoyed it. I loved it so much. This is another author that I found out about last year and just super love it. Super love it. If you've read Emily Henry, which I'm sure everybody watching this probably has, both Kennedy Ryan and Abby Jimenez give me the same energies of Emily Henry and just like the depth of the characters. Like, it is so much more than just a romance. Like, it's two people genuinely getting to know each other and like digging deep into their flaws and everything. Now we're gonna shift to another section of this. I think I will go for fantasy. The first one on this list is like a sci-fi fantasy, but whatever, like, leave me alone. I was not expecting to read this, but I read Dune by Frank Herbert. Like, this is a thick book. It doesn't look as thick as it actually is because it has like Bible pages, but I ended up really loving this, and like I fell in love with Dune 2 last year, and I just love the vibes that we got from this. Like, the whole commentary that Frank Herbert is going for of like the dangers of having a messiah figure and how Paul Atreides, there's all these planets involved. It's like, it's super complicated. Don't expect me to give a good explanation. But Paul Atreides is a figure that his name becomes so much more powerful than, I mean, he is powerful himself, but like his name itself has so much power over so many people, and people view him like as a god, and it can either lead to greatness or it can lead to corruption. And I feel like this series, I've only read the first one. I need to continue on because like I'm super interested, and I've researched a lot about like where this series is going and very fascinated by it. But it's about the pathway of corruption, and I really loved the movies as well, with how, I mean, you are seeing his steady decline into not being a very good person. I find it so interesting. It is like a thick fantasy sci-fi book. Like, this is going to be a little bit more dense, but I do think people should give it a try, because what we're doing here is, in my opinion, unique, and I really love diving deep into like what makes someone, you know, a bad person, and like what power can really do to someone, and how dangerous it really is. Another fantasy book I was absolutely obsessed with last year was the Emily Wilde books, specifically Map of the Otherlands. The first one is the Encyclopedia of Fairies. This I read before, gave it like 3 or 4 stars, I can't remember, but I didn't love it that much. I enjoyed it, didn't love it, didn't fully get it. It's a very slow, cozy fantasy, and I just wasn't expecting what it ended up being. But this one just expanded so much on the 2 characters that we had and the world, and I enjoyed it so much. It's 2 professors literally studying fairies, but they have such a great dynamic and banter. It's like a slow moving thing between them. Like, it is a romance, but he likes her way more than she likes him. Like, she is down to write her Encyclopedia of Fairies. Like, no one is getting in the way of her career aspirations, you know? Like, he is a doofus, and she low-key feels like there's something not right about him, and she's gonna get to the bottom of it. And this one, she gets to the bottom of it a little bit more, and I just devoured this. I immediately went and reread the first one because I knew that I didn't get it the first time, and rereading it upon that time, like I knew I didn't get it the first time. Like, this is a slow moving thing. I want to let the message out there. Like, if you didn't love this, like, maybe give this a chance, because it's really rare that like a sequel can surprise me like this and make me reevaluate like everything that I thought about the first one. I love it, and there's like footnotes, and it really is like reading her encyclopedia notes, like her entries about what she's experiencing, and It's very unique. The third one just came out and I cannot wait to read it. I'm super excited. The last one on my fantasy list is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is also super popular, but for those few bitches that haven't read it yet, I'm letting you know, the hype is true. It actually is really good. This is a YA fantasy with 2 magical typewriters, 2 people working at this newspaper place, this news place. Why am I dumb? They're both journalists and they both work for the same paper, but they're rivals. They're both trying to get, you know, the higher up position. So that's not good. And, you know, they're bitches to each other in real life, but in actuality, they both have these magical typewriters and they've been messaging each other for quite a bit. And one of them knows who the other one is and the other one doesn't. So it creates quite an interesting dynamic. It's a duology. I've been really loving duologies. It was perfectly done in my opinion, both of the books. I read both of them, both 5-star reads. I just think there was nothing in it that was slow moving. Like everything needed to be in there. It's just perfectly done. Great romance, interesting world. There's going to be some sort of prequel or sequel thing that's coming out with different characters. So I'm super excited to see more from Rebecca Ross. I know she has other books, so I probably need to get to that. I'm gonna jump to my classic that I have. Yeah, one classic to share because just after that, I have 4 horror/thriller books. The classic that I read last year that was really notable for me was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This one was fascinating. I always knew that I was going to love this book, but I finally sat down and read it. And you know, I have an English degree that I got officially a year ago, and honestly did not feel like I had as much opportunity to read some of the classic books that I thought I was going to read. We ended up reading a lot of short stories and sometimes the same short stories like over and over again. So I have brought it upon myself that I am going to start reading more and more classics because no one's going to tell me to do it. And I really do want to know these books because I mean so many books that I have read in the modern age have been inspired by these classic stories, so I really want to be a part of that. This one was so interesting. If you don't know, oh my god, I'm sweating! This ring light is always gonna be the death of me. If you don't know, Oscar Wilde was a gay man and I believe he was imprisoned and executed because of this. So really tragic story of this man, and he put his feelings into his literature. So this book is quite literally like an exploration of his feelings towards men. I don't feel like I'm saying this very eloquently, but a lot of people, including me, feel like this was more than just a friendship here. Like, no, like this was a true romantic feelings were sparking between these 2 characters. It makes me sick that the Netflix adaptation that's coming, like they're trying to make these 2 characters like siblings. I think siblings or friends or whatever. I don't know. Dorian Gray is getting painted by Basil, and Dorian Gray is like the most perfect looking individual man like ever. Everyone thinks he's gorgeous, youthful looking, just beautiful. So he's getting this portrait painted and Basil is just fascinated with Dorian Gray. The lines in here that he describes his feelings for Dorian Gray, like they are like some of the most beautiful pieces of romantic lines like I've ever read in my life. Like he is truly infatuated with Dorian Gray. Like it's more than friends in my opinion. Dorian Gray is low-key a bitch though. But he's so fascinating to see. This is also like a descent into madness, cruelty, obsession. Dorian Gray, you know, he ages just like any other person. Well, he decides he does not want that to be the case. So I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it. I know this book been out here for a while, but pretty much him and his picture, he wants to swap places with it. Have the picture be aging instead of him. And, you know, he keeps having to look at that and see what he really would have been, and the madness ensues. It's just so well done. It's very, very interesting. I encourage everyone to read it, especially with like the homoerotic lens that I feel like a lot of English teachers look at nowadays, and I really wish I could have experienced it, but none of my professors ever had us read this, so I'm devastated. Now entering my horror section, and there's like one thriller, so I just put them together. The first book I recommend is Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. This book was so crazy. I never expected myself to get so emotional about this book. Like, if you hear the premise, you're gonna be like, what's going on with you? Like, why were you crying about this book? I was crying about this book. This is about a couple who end up losing their son, and I believe the mother, Magos, she takes a piece of her child's lung. Like, this is a small child, like maybe 5 or 6. She takes a piece of his lung and decides to grow it. So she keeps feeding it, and the lung starts to morph into a monster. And this monster is not human, but her and her man, like, over years are feeding this monster. And this book takes place over so many years as this monster, like, becomes somewhat human and you can, like, pass in the real world, but inherently he's not their son. And he has urges that maybe a monster would have, you know, cannibalistic, like, urges that a human, you can't just have out in the open. Some people can, but you go into prison, you know? So it's such an interesting take because it follows, like, several different people that interact with Monstrilio, the monster. Like, we even have the perspective of Monstrilio. I think he was the last one. We grow to love this monster. Like, he is not just pure evil. Like, he is not wanting to have these urges, and it just ends up being, like, such a tragic story. Like, everything that happened, everyone's in pain. Also, everyone in this book is queer as well, I'm pretty sure. So it was a great book all around, and scary at times, very gruesome descriptions at times, but haunting and emotional. Like, I wasn't expecting such a toll to be taken on me. The next horror book is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. A lot of people probably have heard of this one. I know it's popular, but I have to mention it. Like, I just ate this book up. Like, I highlighted, annotated, like, I just loved it. So this is about Constanta. She is the first wife of Dracula. And I actually read Dracula last year, like right after this or before it, I can't remember. But I was in a vampire moment. So Constanta, you know, she goes through a lot with Dracula, centuries of time. He, you know, gets more wives, and like they are in such a situation together, abusive situation. The first page is her talking about how she killed him. So we know from the very start that their relationship, their centuries upon centuries old relationship, ends in murder. Like, she kills him. And she's desperately trying to get away from him, and just seeing everything that she experiences and how wrapped up you can get in such a person. Like, I mean, people can feel so trapped. And especially someone as, like, ancient and, like, all-powerful as Dracula. You know, like, he has inhuman strength that only he has. So it really explores, like, emotional abuse, physical abuse, just, yeah, it's dark, it's heavy. I would look into trigger warnings for this, but it was incredibly well done in my opinion. I was deeply attached to Constanta and the other characters that ended up being in this book. Queer as well, so definitely read it. The next one on my horror list is I Feed Her to the Beast, and the Beast is a Me by Jameson Shea. This one is a duology. Second one just came out, like, I think in November, and I'm still needing to read that. So super excited about that. Because this book, I mean, the writing, gorgeous. This is a YA horror, and it just completely, like, swept me away. I read it so quickly. I think I have a reading blog of me reading this, so I can link it below. This is about ballet. So Laure is, I think, the only Black girl in the Paris, is it Paris? Yeah, the Paris ballet. And like, ballet is cutthroat. Like, people in ballet, like, serious business. Like, you don't just be there with no talent. Like, you are ripping off toenails, like, type of pain, because you worked so hard on this. And, you know, she's surrounded by all these nepotism white people that don't entirely deserve what they got, you know. There's some people, yes, they're talented, but her best friend in particular, she sucks. So, spoiler warning, I'm so sorry. She is having to work 10 times harder than her peers just to get even close to the same place, despite the fact that she's like 10 times more talented than them. She is orphaned at this point, so she really lives and breathes ballet. And because it's so important to her and she can't really fathom doing anything else, she ends up making a deal with a river of blood, a god. essentially. If you're gonna make a deal with a river of blood, you're gonna get some things but have some consequences as well. So there is, you know, some fantastical elements to this, and it's really, really cool. And I don't want to like spoil anything, but I really, really enjoyed like the portrayal of she is like fighting back with these people and like maybe jumping through hoops to like take some of their places now, but like she deserves it. But some of the techniques and like the things that she's doing to these people are not good, but like they kind of deserve it. So she grapples with a lot in this book, and I really liked the whole found family cast of characters that we had in this as well. So can't wait to read the second one. The last book that I'm recommending to you, this is my thriller read, The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. If you don't know me, I love Holly Jackson. I'm obsessed with the Good Girl's Guide to Murder books. So this one obviously was super excited to read it, and honestly I feel like this was her best work. It shook me to my core. Like I just kept turning the pages and gasping. Like, and I love when I don't like get things right and I'm stupid. Yeah, she just kept surprising me. Like it would take a turn that I just wasn't anticipating. Like I thought we were doing a whole different thing with this book, and it changed. So this follows a girl named, what's her face? Belle. Belle has a very famous mother who disappeared. She's famous because she disappeared. She wasn't already famous. Her mother and her disappeared. Their last footage, you know, has been investigated for years, and no one knows where Rachel Price went, but the little baby, Belle, was left behind. So in this book, Belle's family, the rest of her family, are being filmed for a documentary that's exploring like what happened to Rachel Price, you know? That element is so fun. Love documentaries in themselves, and to have the main character be the subject of the documentary and she's really uncomfortable by it, but her family kind of forced her to agree to do this. Super interesting, but I cannot say much more. Like I do not want to spoil what's going on here, but I mean, the twists and turns were just so fun. Like, this is a YA thriller, but I feel like Holly Jackson has really great YA thrillers. And I know she's coming out with an adult thriller soon, so can't wait to hop into that. But, like, really, give it a chance. Like, they are super hyped, but I feel like it's deserved in my opinion. So those are the 10 books that I really want you to read. Please read them. Let me know if you already read a couple of these, or if there's some that you haven't, which ones are sparking your interest the most. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I enjoyed talking to you again, and I will see you later.